Hello, computer science students. In this video, I'm going to give you a tour of what our replets are going to look like as we start to learn JavaScript. We're going to begin in the index.html file, which should look very familiar with the setup, right? We have the head of the document, the body of the document. In the head, you're going to see two things I want to point out. One is I'm going to link you to a style sheet where you can put the CSS styles. And two, there's going to be the script tag that's going to link to the proper JavaScript library that we're going to use in our JavaScript file. So don't change any of these. And then in the body, you should be familiar with the H1 and H2 tags. Now there's this canvas tag, and that is where I am linking to our JavaScript file. I called it my p5 code because we're using the JavaScript library p5. And this is the file over here. We're going to look at it last. You can see I gave it an ID so that I could style it in the CSS file, which is what we're going to look at next. And you're welcome to play with adding HTML elements to this page, but this unit is very much about using this canvas and interacting with this canvas. That's the priority. Moving to the style CSS file next. Right here is the ID I gave the canvas, and you can see the canvas, I styled it two ways. I gave it corners. I gave it rounded corner edges because I like these rounded corners, and then I gave it a border. Now that the CSS is pulled out into its own file, there is a pretty expansive color picker that you can play with. Here we go. And again, you know how to use CSS at this point, so if you want to work on styling your page, that is not the priority, but you are welcome to play with this file. I'm going to put it back to the original gold. I'm going to use this history down here to pull it back 5 hours ago, restore. And that only restores the CSS file, so nothing has changed in the HTML or PDE file. And now we start with that gold color that I originally picked. Okay, the final file is what you're going to be spending most of your time in, and that is the PDE file. This is where we're going to be putting our JavaScript. These first two functions, we've got a setup function and a draw function, are going to be in all your JavaScript code going forward for this unit and the next several units. The setup, you can play with these things to figure out what they mean. I will tell you that the size is the size of the canvas. So if I decide to change the first argument to 500, you'll see that the canvas got wider. And then let's change the background from 255, 255, 255. Let's make one of these 0 and see what happens. Okay, now we have a yellow canvas. Looks lovely with this gold border. And then we have the draw. And I have a note here. We have the fill color, which you're going to learn about in the videos. And then your code, here's my comment, for this unit goes here. It goes in the draw function. I'm telling you for this first one where you're building a snowman, it should go under this ellipse, this first ellipse call. So let me just add another ellipse. If I run it now, nothing's going to look different because I just put two ellipses on top of each other. So let me change this value, change the first parameter to 100 and the second one to 150. Now we've got two ellipses. Okay, so the focus is these two files that these two functions that you are playing with. I put some code down below to give you an idea of like where we're going with things or other things we're going to be playing with in the future. You can largely ignore these. They are meant to be helpful, and I'll show you why. I put this together where when you click on the canvas, it tells you the X and Y location of that dot. And that's going to be helpful as you try to lay shapes out on this canvas and you want them to be in a certain position. I made it so that when you press the C, I'm changing the code. When I run my code, I made it so when you press the C button, everything resets back to how it started with actually a white background. Interesting. And lastly, what I want to show you is that these X and Y's not only show up on the screen, they also show up on the console log. And to access that, if you pull your website out to its own page and then inspect and go to console, once we start clicking, here we are. There is where the X and Y values are also being posted. So not only to the canvas, but also to the console log. And this means that eventually we can get rid of it showing on the canvas and just seeing it on the console log so it doesn't impact your image or your canvas at all. Is there anything I want to highlight before we go? No, I led you through the index HTML file. You know that this canvas is our new tag that brings the canvas to the screen. You can ignore lines 8 and 9, leave them as they are. Style, feel free to play with style. But the bulk of what we're doing going forward in learning JavaScript is going to be in this PDE file. And specifically for this unit, you're going to be focusing on the draw function and putting different shapes and colors in this draw function.